Hello, my name's Kate Dornick and I'm the PP Admissions Coordinator. And what I'd like to do is just talk a little bit about how you can prepare for the TSA or the Thinking Skills Assessment Test. So the TSA has two parts to it. There's a first part, which is a multiple choice test, and then there's a second part, which is an essay question. So if you're doing PPE, then you're going to be answering both sections. But if you're doing any other TSA subject, then you're only doing the multiple choice section. So the first thing that I want to say is if you go to our website, you'll find that there's more than 10 years worth of past papers. So by looking at those, you can see what kind of questions we ask, and you can practice answering those questions in the time available. For the multiple choice part, there's solutions available too, so you can see exactly how you're doing. The questions, as you'll see, are not subject specific. There's no knowledge, no facts that you have to learn. So there really is absolutely no substitute for going to those tests and practicing them. The TSA is going to be taken online. So what that means is that the questions will be shown on screen, and you will also be entering your answers on screen. So we have a practice test set up for you on the online format, and by going there, you will be able to practice moving your way through the test and entering your answers just as you would do in the real thing. And another thing I'd like to remind you is if you're entitled to any access arrangements, such as extra time for the test, then do make sure that when you register for the test, you register for those arrangements at the same time. Now, a couple of bits of advice for the multiple choice part itself. So this test is supposed to be a challenging test, and you really shouldn't expect to find it easy. So if you find that you are getting 60 or 70%, it may not feel like it, but you are actually doing really well. And one of the things that makes the multiple choice part hard is the time pressure you will be under. You are going to answer 50 questions in 90 minutes. And if you go online and practice, you will find that is really quite a pace. So it's important to manage your time well. So if you're getting stuck on a question, and there will be questions that you get stuck on, then the best thing to do is just put some answer, any answer, even if it's a guess, flag that answer, that question, to come back to later if you've got time, and move on. In the multiple choice questions, you don't get any marks taken off for incorrect answers. So do make sure you put down an answer for every question, even if it is at the end, literally a guess. I'm now going to move on to saying just a few things about the second part of the test, the essay. So remember, this bit is only relevant if you're applying for PPE. So for the essays, you have a choice of questions of which you just choose one to answer. So again, you can see examples of questions of past papers online. And what you'll see is that on the whole, they are loosely related to ideas in politics, philosophy, and economics, but really only quite loosely. And we're definitely not expecting any specific knowledge on those subjects. What we're looking for is that you can communicate your ideas in a clear and logical way, that you can organize your thoughts and then write effectively. So my first bit of advice, and this is probably obvious, is make sure that you read the question carefully so you know exactly what's being looked for. And then my next bit of advice is it's really tempting at this stage to rush in and start writing straight away. And instead, I would say, take a few moments, think what you want to say, use the writing materials to plan out your answer, and that way you'll know where you're going and you'll be able to organize it in a much better way. Remember, there isn't any one right answer or best answer, but it is important that what you do say is communicated clearly. And then the third bit of advice is to remember that a longer answer is not necessarily better. Instead of just writing down everything that you can think of, all the ideas that you've got on a topic, Instead, choose your arguments carefully and word them accurately. And that's going to give you a much clearer, nicer answer. And finally, on the day itself, all the best of luck.